Okay, we're back after our chapter book here, Bunnicula. In our last section, we had the cat trying to stay up all night to watch the rabbit because he thought that he was a threat to the family. The cat had had a little incident with the grandfather clock and had fallen asleep, so the dog's like, Chester, the dog Harold's like, Chester, hey, how'd you fall asleep? Anyhow, he woke back up and the rabbit wasn't in there. A light was coming from the kitchen door. I went into crouch, stalking the light. When click, I heard the refrigerator door close and the light went out. It must have been Mr. Monroe having his midnight snack, I suggested. No, that's what I thought. I jumped on my chair, curled up real quick, and kept one eye open, pretending to be asleep. Slowly the door to the kitchen squeaked open. This little head poked out from round the corner and looked to either side to see if the coast was clear. Then, guess who came bouncing in all by himself, with an idiotic grin of his plastered all over his face. Well, I guess it wasn't Mr. Monroe, I said. The dog's always trying to make jokes. Not unless he wears bunny pajamas and gets very teeny at night. Bunnicula? Huh? You got it. Unfortunately, I hadn't positioned myself so that I could see him get back into his cage, and I didn't want to let him know that I had seen anything, so I had to stay put. I still don't know how he got out or back in. At this point, Miss Monroe came downstairs to make breakfast. I wonder if Chester hadn't dreamed the whole thing. He did admit he'd fallen asleep, and, as I've said, he has quite an imagination. But I was game. After all, there hasn't been any excitement in this place for days. Chester and I took our position under the kitchen table. We didn't have long to wait. Holy cow, Mr. Monroe yelped as he opened the refrigerator door. He looked at this funny-looking white thing. He took this funny-looking white thing out of the fridge and held it at arm's length. Peter, come down here. What is it? I whispered. Beats me, Chester answered. It looks like a white tomato. Very funny, I said as Pete came into the kitchen. Pete, have you been playing with your chemistry set in here? No, Dad, why? I thought this might be one of your experiments. Do you know what it is? Gee, Dad, it looks like a white tomato. Just then, Mrs. Monroe and Toby came in the door. Well, what's all the fuss? Mrs. Monroe asked. We were just trying to figure out what this is. Toby pulled it down so he could get a better look. Well, he said, it looks to me like a white tomato. Mr. Monroe took a good long look. You know, he said to his wife, it really does look like a white tomato. There's one way to find out, said Mrs. Monroe, who always was the practical one. Let's cut it open and see what's inside. Everybody gathered around the table. I jumped up on a chair, and in all the excitement, no one noticed that I had put my paws on the table, which was under normal circumstances was discouraged, to say the least. Chester wasn't so lucky. Chester, get off the table, Mrs. Monroe said. Chester jumped onto Toby's shoulder, where he stayed to view the proceedings. Mrs. Monroe took her sharpest knife and cut clearly through the thing. It fell into two halves. It's a tomato, all right, said Mrs. Monroe. Here are the seeds. But it's all white, Toby observed. And look, said Peter, it's dry. So it is, Mr. Monroe said, as he picked up one of the halves. There is no juice at all. Well, Anne, what do you think? It's gone bad, I guess, though I've never heard of a tomato turning white before. Come on, she said, clearing the table. Let's throw it out and have breakfast. And Harold, get your paws off the table. Rats. Chester jumped down from Toby's shoulder and motioned for me to follow him into the living room. This had better be important, I said. They're cooking bacon. A white tomato? Very significant, Chester murmured. So it's a white tomato, I said, edging my way back to the kitchen door. What does that have to do with Bunnicula? I can tell you one thing, Chester said. I got a good look at the tomato. There was very suspicious marks on the skin. Now, the outer part of a tomato would be called its skin. So? I believe they're teeth marks. So? Tonight I'm going to reread a book I read last year. How fascinating, I said. as the aroma of frying bacon wafted across my nostrils. And what book might that be? The Mark of the Vampire. Ah, ha, ha, ha. What? I stopped dead in my tracks. Meet me tonight after the others have gone to sleep. You better take a nap today so you can stay awake. Chester closed his eyes. I shifted my look to Bunnicula, who soon seemed to be asleep in his cage. A tiny smile sat upon his lips. A happy dream? I wondered. Or something else. My reverie was broken by the sound of crunching bacon, and I was in the kitchen in a flash. Chapter 4 for tomorrow. As you're thinking about this story, I want you to predict, is the little harmless bunny Bunnicula a vampire, as Chester kind of thinks, or is he a harmless little bunny? If he's just a harmless little bunny, how do you explain the white tomato with the strange teeth mark in it that was dry? Wait a minute, tomatoes, usually red, some red like blood. Stay tuned, Chapter 4, tomorrow.